The battery's not in, Jeff. And we're live.
All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the Utah Senate, our time to answer questions from the public and from our media representatives. We welcome those who are watching over the internet. Today I've asked Senator Hinkins and Senator Backus to come in to answer any questions regarding the bills we just passed. They were House bills regarding PILT. And you just want to maybe summarize, both of you, bills that you addressed on floor.
Yeah, my bill was House, I was a floor sponsor for House Bill 357, which is a bill that basically is a group of, puts a group together that would actually ask the government for our equitable amount of PILT payment, payment in lieu of taxes is what it is, and it actually creates a group that would representatives from our legislature as well as from our federalism, and so they would get together and make an equitable decision of what the taxes should be, and it would also go to the Federalism Commission here in the state of Utah. And what this board signifies is this is in Garfield County, the amount of the BLM property that's in their county, which is non-taxable, as well as the Forest Service, and then the National Park System, and then the state portion of it. And this leaves 3% that's actually taxable private property that's in Garfield County. So you can see the inequality. So this is the amount of money. They get $1 million for the rest of this, and they usually get around $8 million for this. And so you can see the kind of inequality. And so what we're trying to do is point out the way it is. And this is just one county. Kane County is basically the same, as well as Garfield County, and maybe it's even worse in San Juan County, because a lot of there also has a reservation, the Navajo Reservation, which is a big chunk of their county, which is about a quarter of it. So you can see and that's what we're trying to point out. And the other states, western states, 75% of the federal ground is basically in western states, and so we're trying to help the other states as well as the state of Utah. If they want to be landlords and own all this property, that's fine, but they really should be paying a fair share, and that's what we're trying to strive at. So,
Senator Backus, you talked about deadbeat taxpayers.
Look, I am liberal. I am perfectly fine with the federal government owning what they own in our state. I don't have any problems with it. I love our magic. It's unbelievable, the most beautiful country on planet Earth. But if the federal government wants to own it, they got to stop being deadbeats as far as paying their fair share. You can't. How can you have this? I don't blame rural Utah for being upset. And Hinkins uses this on me sometimes. And we got a little bit of a deadbeat problem right here with the S part of it too, because the state doesn't pay its fair share either, right?
right.
There we go. So So look, can you imagine if you're in a county and 95% is owned by somebody else, and some years they will pay you a little bit, and some it'll be 6 months late, and sometimes they'll cut where it's going to be. We need PILT payments that are much more in line in the billions of dollars with what the tax rolls would be. And then the second part of that is, it can't be hit and miss or held hostage, or if Hatch and Lee will go along with this, then it can't be that way. This is debt that is owed to the people and the school districts of Utah, and it ought not to be a topic of conversation. It just should flow out like Social Security checks. So I would hope that this stick will be used on our congressional delegation, and they'll stop yapping so much about, close bears' ears or get coal here or do that, and they'll start giving the people in our rural areas, and sometimes in not so rural areas, what is due to them. So Senator Hatch, get this done.
I think one of the big issues we have is all of these small counties that have all this federal land, we recreate there. And so on a given day in the summer in Daggett County, they have 3 full-time law enforcement and might have 200,000 people there. And if we have an emergency, nothing happens. I mean, it just takes time, and that they have that issue because there's just not enough tax base. They get by what they do, and it's a big impact on many of these smaller counties where we all go to play. And right now, Daggett, for example, Daggett County has 2 ambulances. Try to keep one in at Flaming Gorge there in Dutch John, and one in Manila, and they have 1 crew to run them. So if you're up there and you need emergency medical assistance, many times they'll send a helicopter because they just can't get there quick enough. So,
Are there any questions?
So, how realistic is this that you could even see any kind of money, or would the feds just laugh in your face? Because you're saying, yeah, we want a resolution, we think you oughta, it's not legally binding, and then you have a bill that says, let's study this concept too. But what's the reality of trying to get money out of the feds?
Well, it would be the same as if, you know, to have a tax base, and well, that's what we feel, that if we don't pay our taxes, of course, we don't get anything mistaken that we want to keep the public lands public. We've talked about transfer of ownership to Utah, and we'd like with our sovereign lands of the lakes, of the Great Salt Lake, Utah Lake, the rivers, and Bear Lake and stuff, but we actually, I don't know the possibility. I mean, trying to get money out of a bankrupt, basically, nation that owns $20 trillion might be pretty hard to do, but if I don't pay my taxes, or you don't pay your taxes, they'll put your property up for sale, and I just feel that it's been a long time since they've evaluated our properties and stuff, and it's priceless properties. I mean, they've said so themselves, and priceless means that, you know, they could come in and reappraise it, and not come off of 1956 appraisals and stuff, and be able to tax it, because we have, like Senator says, Grand County, we have search and rescue teams down there that's inadequate because of the amount of people that comes there on certain weekends when they have their Jeep safari.
So they are paying some money, right?
Oh yeah, they pay about $1 million to a county like that, but see.
But they're not paying enough.
County, they own 90% of the property in Kane County, so they're paying $1 million, maybe $1.2 million. But yet they generate $8 million off the 10% in that county, and so it's just unequal. Where you get $8 million off 10%, and you get $1 million off 90%. And so you can see the inequality, and so we're just trying to point that out. And it's all the western states that's in the same situation.
Sure, but reality, do you think, I mean, is this a long shot?
No, I don't think so.
I think we got a shot. I'm gonna meet with Senator Lee. I guess you guys are invited at 1:15.
Yeah.
And the point is gonna be, Orrin Hatch is head of King of whatever, finances, and Mr. Lee now is in charge. You got Republicans running everything, a Republican in the White House. If this can't get done now and get it into ongoing, when can it get done? So I'm gonna say, Senator Lee, let's make a deal. I'm available. If you get this done, I won't run for the Senate, and if it is, then I can go represent us and I'll get it done. Because look, this isn't just like a side issue. This goes a long way to solving our generational, long-term land issues that we've been fighting about since statehood, and it's a simple message. You want all the land, you want to protect it for future generations, great. Just pay the piper. That's all there is to it. It's about 35, 40 million a year total now.
Yeah, I think so. See, Salt Lake County gets a portion of it, but it would be like very minimal, maybe like $50,000. Morgan County's the least amount. They're more privately owned than any other county in the state, but some of the rural counties, San Juan County, like I said, they don't. It's around $1 million, so I'd say around 33 million.
Sorry I was late. Have you pulled your ruler out? I think
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
Yeah.
We just want this money to flow like sound bites from Senator Backus.
You know, the basis of it is at 50 cents an acre, and that's currently what would be paid on bill. That is even lower than ag land that's in
Right.
Greenbelt.
Yeah, Greenbelt land's actually 3 to 4 times that amount, so.
Has Utah litigated this, or is that
I
an
don't believe
option?
so, I'm
if
not
it-
sure.
No discussions about that as a background for
I'm sure it's an option at some point. And I mean, I think I just have to say that I think our chances are far greater by bringing the issue up than not addressing it at all.
Well, you never know until you ask.
That's
Right. Yeah,
That's what we're doing. Let's go on to, I've got Senator Fillmore here also.
Hello.
Is there any questions on equity funding for schools. Do you want to maybe just give just a brief summary of the bill?
Yeah, I'm glad to be with Senator Bacchus on the issue of equity. You know, when it comes to, you know, geography sometimes can have limitations on some jurisdictions over others. We just want to make sure, because right now, if you move from Draper to Riverton, your education funding goes down by 20%. And the value of the kid hasn't changed, the cost of her education hasn't changed, but the funding has gone down. And that's just because one of those school districts wears different handcuffs than the other, right? Jordan just doesn't have the ski resorts, the commercial property, the second homes to be able to generate that kind of money. We want to make sure our whole minimum school program is premised on the fact that every kid deserves reasonably equal education. And the state makes up a good portion of that. And then we tell school districts, you need to make a local effort to make up the difference and to do what you guys want to do locally. But we've just empowered local districts differently by the way we've drawn boundaries. And so we just need to recognize those differences. And as our education funding pot grows, we just ought to help those that can't generate it on their own grow a little bit faster than they otherwise would, right? It's a question of, we take new money, we can distribute it equally, right? So that Park City gets the same funding increase as San Juan County, or we can recognize San Juan County just doesn't have the tax base. Garfield County, they just don't have the tax base. And so as a state, we're gonna help them grow a little bit faster because they need it more.
But how do you not then create a larger problem where, or how do you avoid creating a larger problem where you have, say, a school district like Jordan that has a huge population and then suddenly they see a decline in funding because the money's going to Kane County or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like where you have a tiny school district that has, yes, they don't have the same opportunities as students in the Jordan school district, but
Yeah.
then
Thanks.
you're creating an undue burden on the Jordan district.
Thanks for asking, but nobody's gonna see a funding reduction under this bill. Every kid gets a funding increase every year.
As long as we increase the as
That's
long
right.
as we have.
As long as
increasing it.
there's any money in the education fund,
Yeah.
everybody will get something. But San Juan will get a little bit more than Salt Lake City, because San Juan just doesn't have the tax base.
Any other questions on school funding equity? Any questions from our viewers?
I wanted to ask about the honeypot.
Yes.
Did you get an update?
We did get an update. So, yesterday, the UHP investigation of, I guess you call it the honeypot. Well, of the situation that Senator Vickers found himself in, they reviewed surveillance, so they concluded their investigation yesterday. There was a review of surveillance videos. There's interviews with Senator Vickers and other individuals at the hotel. They followed these in an effort to determine the identity of the individual involved. And although the investigation was unable to determine who that was, we are continuing to, it's a good reminder to us as legislators that we need to be cautious and we need to be vigilant, especially during the legislative session.
What conclusions do you draw from that? She cannot be identified, but did something happen, or was it a case of mistaken identity, or what?
Senator Vickers is not here, but he mentioned that, maybe that does, he mentioned this to me yesterday, that maybe that does show that maybe it was a wrong door and that maybe she went to some other place in the hotel. But that's all conjecture, that's not anything substantive, and we don't know what the situation was. So surveillance videos weren't able to identify anybody in particular, and so there was really nothing to investigate any further. And we want to just, we want to let the Little America know and UHP know that we are thankful for their investigation, the time they spent in addressing the situation.
Do you think you'll be asking senators to change hotels or anything in the future?
No, but I just think it creates the need for us to just be self-aware. Anybody? All right, thank you, everyone, and
Thank
looks
you.
like some of you might be available if there's any other questions.